opening was like 10 gigs, and it was there like 28-minute segments. I'm like, what the hell? So I was like, I'm just gonna stream it and get it worked out.
See, I don't like that because if I do it straight, I could just go to where I want to stop.
Exactly.
Cut it there.
Yep.
I know the file is gonna be super large. It's gonna be large anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you know it's gonna be large. So just, I'm an adult. I understand that it's gonna be a large file.
So
Let me
like
do it.
30 different
Products.
because there's an 8-hour event.
Yeah.
So I have to go through all of them, sync both of the cameras together, combine them, and then that's without even including the slides.
That sucks. So okay, yeah, because what I have now, like when I do is
we're still
don't exit that, but you can probably close it.
no,
So it's still like in the background.
Yeah, that's what I
because
mean.
what happens is it's still recording. Like it's recording. Like you sent all the information it needs to do what it's got to do.
Like if I go out.
Yeah, like as long as it's red light, it's still on.
Gotcha.
So it's recording and doing what it's got to do. Broadcasting. Maybe I could go back.
Hi everyone, welcome. Good afternoon.
Like,
So today what I'd like to do with you is just talk to you a little bit how we can develop applications with Angular and Firebase. And as a bonus, we're going to get real-time applications. Yay! So for the agenda for today, we're going to do a little bit of a Firebase overview. Anyone here already works with Firebase, already familiar with that? Okay, so we have a few people. Also get a little bit of overview of Firebase database, the two different types that we have, how we can connect Firebase to an application. In this particular case, I chose Angular, but you can also use Vue, React, or any other JavaScript framework that you desire. And then go a little bit also about the Firebase authentication, called functions, Firebase extensions, Firebase hosting. There are much more, but we'll limit our scope to these ones. So my name is Loiane. I'm a software engineer or a developer. You can call it whatever you like by day. And also by night, I like to blog, and also I have a YouTube channel in Portuguese. In case you like to learn Portuguese, that's a great opportunity for you. And also learn Angular. And I'm also a DDE in Angular and web technologies as well. So let's get started then. Usually when we start talking to people and we ask what is Firebase, usually the first answer that we get is, okay, Firebase is a database from Google. So it's kind of like a NoSQL database. That's usually what people think. However, if we go to the Firebase website, which is firebase.com, we're gonna get all of this. So in that particular case, the real-time database, it's only one of the functionalities that we have available. So Firebase is much more than that, and that's what I'm planning to show you today. And of course, this is more for web development. Usually when you go to the website, we're gonna get build better apps, improve app quality. So it's usually for apps, but it doesn't matter. You can have web applications as well, not only mobile applications. And in case you decide to use iOS or Android, you can also have much more resources available for you as well. So, okay, I like this Firebase. I want to get started. How do I do that? It's very easy. You go to the firebase.com, you log in with your Google account, and then you create your first project. No credit cards needed, so you can start for free. Yay! So, we give a name to our project. It's very important to give a unique name. In case you don't have a unique name, you're gonna get some ID, some random numbers right here, but that's okay. Then you can also choose if you wanna enable the Google Analytics to get some information for your project. And of course, as any cloud provider, any cloud service, as a step 3, you also have to choose the location of your project. So if the majority of our users are within the United States, then of course you're going to choose a location within the US or Europe or any other location. And after you create a project, this is what you're going to get. So this is the dashboard. It's very user-friendly. You have all your services right here: authentication, database, storage, hosting, functions, and much more. And then you can start from here. So let's pause a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the database, which is one of the most popular features that we have in Firebase. So when you go to the database option in the menu, you're gonna get the Cloud Firestore. So Firebase has two databases, the real-time database and also the Cloud Firestore which was released last year, if I'm not mistaken, and now it's fully in production mode. It's not in beta anymore, so you can use in production for your applications. So once you create a database, you're gonna get this pop-up, and this pop-up is very important because you have two options. The first one is the production mode. This one is the one that's gonna be selected by default. However, for testing, for development, usually it's a good idea to start in test mode. But we cannot forget to change it back to production later, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about that as well. So, two databases, which one should we choose? So we have the real-time database, which was the first one that was created. As the name implies, it is a real-time database. And we also have Cloud Firestore, and Firestore is also a real-time database, which is nice. So when should we use this? When Firebase is a good option for our applications? Imagine that you have an application, you don't need a lot of logic on your, so you can connect from your front end directly to the database. Usually if you need to only read information from the database or write information to the database, then that's a great option. It also allows you to synchronize data between different devices, and I'm gonna show you in a demo as well. So imagine that you have your mobile device, you open your website or your application that is connected to Firebase, and you also open a browser in your lab in both of the devices, which, yay, it's really good. Data offline as well, which is great in case you are looking to build a progressive web application, a PWA. And by the way, we have a session later today, so you may also use a lot of the functionalities with your PWA as well. And both of them, both the real-time database and the Firestore, are kind of like it's in your database. So in case you decide to create a real-time database, this is how it's gonna look like. So it's a big JSON, you're gonna get all your objects in this format. And in case you choose to use Firestore, you're gonna get collections and documents. The concept is a little bit different, however, the way that they work, it's a little bit similar. So instead of having the big structure, you still have a similar structure, however, it's a little bit more organized. Another difference is that the real-time database, we have the export JSON, import JSON. This is still in my wish list for the Firestore as well. I'm waiting for Google to implement that. Hopefully they will. So it's really easy for you to upload something or download, export, do a transfer of your data or backup or whatever you like to do. However, in the Cloud Firestore, there's a functionality that is really great, especially if you need to manage data. So when you work with the real-time database, you have to get your data, and once you have your data, then you have to search for that particular record or document that you're looking for. But in Firestore, you can work with where clauses or the bar clauses, which are really useful, especially if you're used to work with non-relational databases. So it makes really easy for you to get your data already sorted or look for something in the database without getting everything. Okay, so now we have our data, and now we would like to connect to our application. How we can do that? So once we get back to that initial page of the project, you will see here a few icons, so iOS, Android, web, and also Unity. In our case, since we like to work with web, we're gonna choose the web icon, and then it's gonna walk us through a simple wizard so we can get our application set up, done. So first things first, we're also gonna choose the name of the application. If you like to use Firebase hosting, you can also choose a name for your app. Then you're gonna get customized URL for that. You register the application, and then it's gonna ask you to add the Firebase SDK. If you are working with Angular, React, Vue, there's another way to do that. But in case you like to use the Firebase SDK for JavaScript, this is what you have to do. Just add this to the end of your body tag, and you are good to go. After that, you install the Firebase Tools, which is an NPM, so you will need Node.js for that. Install it globally so you have access to Firebase. And then you can log into Firebase with your Google account, init the project, and then do the deploy as well. And as I mentioned, there is an easier way to do that if you want to connect to Angular or any other framework. So when you go to the documentation, to the Firebase google.com/docs, you're gonna get some options here if you choose the web platform. So we have Angular Fire, we have Ember Fire, React Fire, RX Fire, Vue Fire. So you can go to the respective page also and then take a look how you can connect to Vue or React, for example. In case of Angular in specific, so this is gonna be the very simple demo that I'm gonna show to you. You may look, okay, so this is very simple, but you can scale your code or you can build a more complex application as well. The way that's gonna work, it's very similar. All you have to do is just spend a little bit more time coding to get to a more complex result than a simple result. So for Angular, there is a great tool that's called Angular CLI that is part of the Angular ecosystem. So you might also want to install it. You install globally as well and locally with NPM. And what it allows us to do is create a project. So we're gonna scaffold the project. We can do ng-serve, we can create components, services, pipes, classes, and whatever there is available in the Angular ecosystem. And another great thing about the Angular CLI as well is that it supports schematics. What exactly is this schematics? So schematics is a way to add an extended support. In case of Angular Material, in case you like to use Angular Material in your project as well, or Firebase, you can add the schematics that support this library. So ng-add Angular Material, ng-add Angular Fire. What this is gonna do is install the NPM packages, and it's gonna also do the initial setup. In case of Angular Material, it's gonna add the font and also the icons into your HTML page, so you don't have to manually do that. And for Angular Fire, is also gonna create all the Firebase files that are required, so later we can do the deployment and add functions and other functionalities as well. So this is a shortcut instead of adding everything else manually. So for the setup, so in Angular, for those that are familiar to Angular, we have the main module in case of the app module, where you can just call the main module from Firebase and initialize the application, passing your configuration. So this configuration, a great place to have this configuration in your application is inside the environment.ts. So Angular, when you create a project, you're gonna get two files, the environment dev to use in development, which is where you're usually gonna add everything you need for development, and then your same configuration in the environment.ts, that's your production file. So when you are when you are developing the application and you are using ng-serve, it's gonna use the environment development file. However, once you do the ng-build, it's gonna build the application and prepare it for production, meaning it's gonna obfuscate and minimize and create the very optimized JavaScript files. It's gonna use the environment.ts. Now, a question that is very common, especially for the Firebase configuration is, okay, so you are showing us real data here. So this is actually the configuration from that particular project. And people usually are very afraid to commit this to GitHub or usually show this public. But this is supposed to be public, so you don't have to hide or mask or anything. Because once you create your production build with Angular, this is gonna be available within the JavaScript files that are gonna be loaded by the browser. So in case you like a challenge, you're gonna spend some time trying to do the reverse engineer on your JavaScript files. You might find all this configuration over there, but that's particular okay, because this is not a security breach. Whenever we are working with Firebase, remember that I mentioned the two options is start in development mode or start in production mode. Once we switch to production mode, that's where we're gonna set all the configuration for production. So that's where we're gonna add all the configuration related to security. Who can access that information? Does the user needs to be authenticated? Does the user needs to have a particular entitlement for that application? So that's totally up to you. So don't be afraid to show your configuration. So where exactly do I get this? Because when I created my project, this was not shown to me. So you can go back to the dashboard and then there is this configuration icon. It is in the general configuration. You go to the settings, just scroll down a little bit, and then by default, you're gonna get the automatic. Just switch to the config, copy this, put into your configuration file, and voila, you are done. So another thing that I like to do whenever I'm working with Angular and Firebase is creating a Firebase module. Now with Angular version 9 and Angular Ivy, modules will be kind of like optional, so that's still to be decided. Maybe next year I can review this presentation and have in a different way. But for now, what I like to do, I like to create a Firebase module with all the exports from all the modules that I'm gonna use in my application, and whenever I am working in a different module in Angular, I can just import my custom module. Or if you like to, you can also import individual modules in each of your Angular modules as well. That's totally fine, it's your application, you decide how you like to use it best. And to retrieve a collection, now we get a little bit how we can actually connect. So we have connected to Firebase, and now we want to start working. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna inject your Firebase store into the Angular service. You can do that directly in a component as well, but I would highly recommend to create a service so you have all your business logic in a service and not in a component. Then you can create and connect to the database collection in case you like to get an array, so all the records, all the documents that are available in Firebase. Or if you do have the ID for one particular document or record, you can also access it like hero / and the ID and use document instead of collection. And here, what is really interesting in Firestore, and it doesn't have in the real-time database, as I mentioned before, you can actually create your query here. So you can order by, you can have multiple order bars, you can also do a where clauses, so you can manage your query and get the collection or the record exactly as you would like to receive. Then we get the changes. So this actually returns an observable. So Angular by default is a reactive framework, and by that it means that we're gonna work a lot of streams, and with this we're gonna work also a lot with our XJS, which is a wonderful library. And what XJS allows us to do is by piping the information, so we get our original data, we're gonna send that data through pipes, and we'll be able to manage the information and transform the information if we like. In that particular case, when we get information from Firebase, we're gonna get in the particular format that Firebase is gonna return us, so it's a Firebase object. However, in my application, I would like to work with classes or interfaces as we saw in the previous presentation. So I actually created a hero class, and I would like to get my data in this particular format. So I can map the information and return instances of the hero class instead of the original Firebase record. And in the template, how I am gonna to subscribe or retrieve that information is we're gonna get an observable, so that returns a list of information based on observable format. And what I can do, I can use the async pipe from Angular, and I can subscribe to my observable. That's gonna get the information for me, and what it also does is whenever this component is destroyed, it automatically gonna unsubscribe from that particular subscription. And this is very important because if you just subscribe to a lot of observables in Angular, at some point you might have memory leaks. So whenever you subscribe to something in Angular, just remember to unsubscribe. If we're not able to use the async pipe, and sometimes we would like to subscribe directly in the component and manage the information in the component before we expose it to the template, that's also okay. Just remember to unsubscribe using one of the operators from RxJS, or by using the lifecycle hook on the ng-destroy and do the unsubscribe from your subscription. And then here we can, for example, display the image for the hero name, and also display the button to like the hero. And to update the document, as I mentioned before, if you do have the ID of the document, just add the doc and then you can access the operations such as update, you can also create, you can also delete, so it's very, you have all the CRUD operations ready for you to use. For this particular case, it's going to return a promise. If you want to, you can also handle the promise right here, or of course you can use one of the RxJS operators and transform the promise into an observable and then handle that in our component in a way that you think that it is better. So how exactly does it work? So let me show you first. I have here that very simple application. So I have just a list of heroes. One is connected in Chrome, another one it is rendered in Safari. So I'm just gonna like my hero, and then as you can see, I'm not refreshing, so the information is being updated in both of them. In case you like to, you can also access this, the Angular Heroes, Angular-Heroes-rt.web.app. And in case you have your mobile phone with you, you can also undo the real-time update. If I come here again, I only really like Captain Marvel, so let me give her a few likes, or if I want to do the Iron Man here, automatically it's gonna do the update. So this is actually what is really wonderful about Firebase, and I did this with the code that I showed to you. I didn't have to do WebSockets, long polling, I didn't have to code any back-end code. The only thing that I did was, someone really likes Captain Marvel. So all that I did, so now that's a fight. So all that I did is created my Firebase database, I connected to my Angular application, I subscribed, and then rendered in this application. Okay, let's go back. This is fun. So how does it work? So is it magic? It looks like magic, but as technologists, we know that's not magic. So one thing that is really interesting is if you go to the network tab whenever the application is ready, you will see that you will get the channel and then question mark and then some information. But if you take a look at the header, so when we are receiving the data, you'll see a stream token. So by default, the Firebase real-time database or the Firestore, they are reactive Firebase, and reactive, it's really in right now. So everyone is talking about reactive programming, reactive design. So this is how it works. Whenever we are connecting to Firebase, behind the scenes, we have a stream, and Firebase is actually pushing the data to our front end, to our client. So we don't have to do anything to get this done for us. Another thing that is also very interesting about Firebase that I forgot to mention earlier is, and it is perfectly normal to do that. So whenever we are creating our database, so you have an idea, you're going to start creating your application, you create your database, and okay, this is how I think my application, my data should look like. So you create a collection, you create your documents, your records, and then you start the development. And you code the first screen, and everything is working perfectly. And then you start coding the second screen. Okay, this is not working that well. So something is missing. I'm not really able to get the information as I want to. I have to do a lot of transformations and mappings to my data. So it is perfectly okay to go back, refactor your model, and then change the model so it works with your first screen and also your second screen. And then when you are developing the third screen, you might want to go back and do some refactoring as well. So that is very normal when you are coding and you are creating applications with a front-end framework and also Firebase. The reason for that is the way that you want to model your data is that it is easier for you to consume it. So you don't want to do a lot of magic in your code, a lot of transformations, a lot of manipulation in order to get the data exactly as you need. So keep that in mind whenever you are trying to model your data. And as I mentioned, it is perfectly fine to go back and change it to however you need. So as I mentioned, we have a stream. So once we connect to the database, to the Firestore, all we're going to do is have a stream open to our client. And whenever there is an update, Firebase will push that information to our front end So it's like an endless stream until you close that application. So important notes. One thing that I mentioned, and I'm going to mention this again because this is very important. So we developed the application, we are good with the data, it's working fine. So now I want to move this code to production. What should I do? At first, we enable the test mode, but if you go to the rules in your Firebase, your Firestore, or also in your real-time database, don't forget to update the rules. And this is where all the security are. So your configuration is public, anyone will have access. Someone may even try to copy the same configuration and use to the application, but it doesn't matter. So as long as we're following the rules, then you're good. So for example, anyone can read the information from courses, but to read something that is specifically to your user, you can read, but in case you need to update or create, then you need to be authenticated, and only you can update your own data. No one else will be able to do that. And we don't allow any removals, and the same thing right here. And then you can create functions for you, so you can expand this, you can have the code complex as you like. And something that is really great about this, if you're not sure if this is gonna work exactly as you want to, there is a simulator that you can use. So you can play with the HTTP methods right here and also the location. So in case if you have a particular ID, you like to test that particular ID, you can also add your document path here and also choose if it is authenticated. You can actually authenticate with a user. So this is really great. So don't forget to do that. And after you're done, publish your rules so your security is in place. So since I mentioned authentication, how exactly does it work? So for authentication, and this is great, and this list keeps growing every year. In the beginning of the year, I gave a similar talk, and then it was like half of this list. Now we have so much more options. So usually the email password, which is the default, you can also allow anonymous access. In that case, you know you are browsing on e-commerce, you see something you like, you put it in the shopping cart, and then you can actually check out without as a guest, so you don't actually need to create an account, so you can also do that. And Facebook, Twitter, GitHub, Yahoo, so just remember to create your application with this particular social networks as well. And the latest additions are the Apple ID as well, which is something that is recent. So if you're working with Angular, there is this great package that you can use, the NGX Auth Firebase UI, that allows you to sign in and register, so you don't actually have to code it, just add this to your code, and you'll have a screen like this ready to use. This is really great, and you can also integrate with all the providers that you like to. So how exactly does this code work? If you're using Angular Fire, so this will be a snippet to connect with the Google account. So you choose your provider in case you like to get some additional information such as email or your image, your profile you can get, and then you sign in with the pop-up. So you're gonna get that pop-up to ask for permission to access your data. And then once you are authenticated, you can get the observable back, and if you want to, you can create a user, add the entitlements to the user, you can do whatever you need with that information, and also access name, picture, and other information. Just remember that GitHub, Twitter, Google, they're all gonna return different objects, so if you're planning to support more than one provider, just get the required information, because that's gonna be a little bit different depending on the provider. And another great thing from Firebase as well, you also get a page that you can administrate all your users. So you get all their emails, the provider, and also a unique ID that you can use in case you need to access. You can also search by email, phone number, or unique ID. The phone number is only available with Android, and I believe iOS as well, which is the sign-in where you get an SMS text with the code, and then you can sign in, but it's not available for web applications. Another great thing as well, so we have our database, we have authentication, everything is good. I don't have a lot of work to do on that, but as I mentioned, if you have an application that you only require to read from the database and write to the database, that's great. But if you need any additional logic, you can also use Cloud Functions. The Cloud Functions, a concept that I like to use, it's like microservices on the cloud, so it's kind of like serverless, that you don't have to worry about managing any of the servers. So you only worry about developing your code and then publishing, and it's also available for you in Firebase. You can use Node.js, Python, Go. You can also use TypeScript in case you are working with Angular as well. And there are different triggers available. So you can listen when someone is reading or writing to a particular collection or document, HTTP requests, storage, and much more. So for that, you're going to need the Firebase Tools, which is that NPM package that we installed in the beginning. And in case this is a Angular project, so we already saw that it's an Angular project, I'm going to select the functions, and it's going to ask me what language would I like to use, because this is already an NPM project. So I can choose between JavaScript and TypeScript, and it's going to create this folder. The functions folder is going to do the npm install. So this is just a regular Node.js project. So what I can do, I can install the npm packages that I want, and I can add the required logic here as well. And you can also sign in as admin using the Firebase SDK. So this will be an example. So one thing that is really common in Firebase, whenever we want to do like count how many people have enrolled in a particular course, for instance, instead of getting all the data and counting every time someone loads the page, that would be very expensive, since I will have to access basically all the data that I have in my database. So I can create a Firebase function here, and whenever someone writes to a particular user, it means that this user was enrolled into a new course, and all I do, I just increment the number of students. So that's a way to keep it simple and cheaper as well, so that wouldn't be expensive. And with Cloud Functions, you also can get access to log. You can see if anything is wrong. You can get all the errors as well. So it's really important to take a look once in a while into your log console. And something that was added this year, this was announced during the Firebase Summit, I believe was a couple of months ago, September. Yeah, a little bit older. So was announced during the Firebase Summit are the Firebase extensions. It is currently in beta. So these are prepacked solutions that we have available for us, meaning you're going to get functionality without having to code at all. So I'll show you a demo. So great way of adding functionality with no code. You can resize images, you can translate, you can send emails, so everything is ready for you. So let's do a demo first. I have installed this already, so I use the resize image. This will be something that is really simple to implement, so you can actually implement a function that does that. However, all you have to do is install this extension, and you don't have to code at all. You can also specify what are the sizes of your images, and then which is the cloud storage bucket, in that case, in which cloud storage you're going to access that information, and if you like to store your resized images into a particular folder. And then it's going to take 3 to 5 minutes. So no code, just wait 3 minutes and you'll be done. I actually have it right here. So I'm going to access my storage real quick. And as you can see, I don't have any files here. So I'm going to upload a file. I have here this image, or this one, for example, this is a 4 megs. Let's see if the internet is gonna help us a little here. So it uploaded, and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna refresh this page just to make sure that I get my image. And it created the thumbnails, and I get the 2 images that was resized. So all I had to do was install this extension, no code at all, and I get this result. And this is great in case you have users uploading images to your application, but you actually would like to get a smaller size for performance, and actually make it easier to render in your application. And what it actually does is it actually creates a Firebase function. So you are using a Firebase function behind the scenes, and as usual, you also get access to logs and much more. And you also can check out the source code available for that, so it's not like a black box. You can actually see what is being executed behind the scenes. So, and at last, once we have developed our application, of course, we would like to push it so everyone might be able to use it. And Firebase also has a product for that, which is called the Firebase Hosting. So for this, in case you are using the Firebase SDK, you can do the Firebase Deploy. It's going to deploy all your files, your functions, your rules, everything that you have available within your source code. But if you're using the Angular CLI, this was added in the Angular CLI version 8.3. So with a single command, which is the ng deploy, Angular is going to produce the production build, so you have your production bundle already optimized and obfuscated, and it's also going to upload directly to Firebase. So no hassle, just one command, you'll have two things done at the same time. ng deploy, the Angular build, and also the Firebase deploy. And of course, anything that is in production, you don't want to do things manually, so you can also integrate this with a continuous integrate tool. This is a screenshot from Travis, but you can use any CI tool that is available. And don't forget, in case you are using a CI tool, don't forget to check if you are not doing pull requests and if you are in your main branch, because otherwise for every pull request you get, you'll be deploying to your production URL, so you don't want to do that. Just make sure everything's passing, your tests passing, the application is compiling fine, and then you deploy it to production. And for the most important part, of course, these are a lot of functionalities that are available, and the best is the you can start for free, no credit card required. But then if you see that your application is growing, there is actually a pretty good free tier. So you get nice hosting for traffic as well, and for evocations to the cloud functions, and also to the Firebase extensions. Some of them you're gonna need for the Blaze plan, but you get a middle tier for $25 a month, which is a good value in case you have a business, or you pay as you go. Just as an example, I actually have the Blaze plan enabled for one of my applications, and this is what I'm gonna pay by the end of this month, $4 for 60,000 users. So it's a pretty good deal, right? Less than $10 a month, I get an application up and running to production. And of course, if you get a lot of requests, a lot of users, the price is gonna be a little bit high, but of course, I assume you're gonna get a little bit more profit as well from your application.
That's on top of it. Is that with the hosting?
Yeah, everything, the functions, the extensions, the hosting, the database, everything included. So it actually gonna apply the discount for the free tier. Everything that I use extra, additionally to the free tier, then it's gonna charge me. So it's a pretty good deal. Well, in case you'd like to know a little bit more about Firebase, there are some links here, basically the documentations and also the source code. If you like to keep hitting the like button for the heroes at home, you can also get the code and install and try in your Firebase account as well, how it works. And I don't know if you have time for any questions. If you do, I believe you can ask them now. If you're a little bit shy, you can also talk to me after the talk, or just ping me on Twitter. I'm also available on Twitter as well. And thank you very much, and obrigada.
With time. 3:10 is the next one.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions? No? All right, so we take a break until the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What is your app that?
It's my training portal. It's Loiane.training. So this is the application that I showed in the beginning. So I actually have 60,000 users running this, mostly from Brazil. But there are just some courses that I have online, and then users can enroll to the courses. And all the videos are in YouTube, so the videos are hosted in YouTube. I don't have to worry about that. And basically it's just an Angular with Angular material, Angular Flex layout. So it's like a full stack Google product. In case you'd like to learn Portuguese, there's a great chance.